hello everybody. Pori Call is my
Hi.
name. From Clonakilty Distillery, but broadcasting from my garage in South Florida.
Yeah.
So I don't need, air conditioning or anything like that. I don't have snow. So I work basically 365 days a year from the garage, as they say in the US. I came here in July 2019. I was trying to run the sort of expansion of the US and Canada from Europe, which doesn't really work. So got my visa and came over and gave my wife the choice of where to live. She chose South Florida, so an hour from Miami, so an hour from the craziness. So it's fine to go there. A great city, but nice to be living just outside of it. So what I can do.
Can you grab it now? Because
I share. Perfect. Thank you.
Great.
So what I would say is, I said to Alan before you all came on, I'm not here to lecture anybody. We're trying to have as much of a discussion as we can. If we can imagine we're all sitting around a table in a pub somewhere. If you have questions, please shoot them. Don't feel that you should be quiet. There's a chat as well. So if you don't want to shout out the question, you can just click on the chat. And that also works. Now, probably can't see my screen yet, so let me just. Now I'm running into a slight technical difficulty after me lecturing Alan on how to solve his problem.
Yeah.
Comes back to bounce back. So let me go show you a little. Oh, here we go. I'm going to show you a little movie just to start with. So can you hear the sound or not?
No.
No, you can't. This is one of the things. Anyway, so what you're looking at here is Gallyhead Lighthouse. And Gallyhead Lighthouse is basically about 5 miles from Clonakilty. So those brown fields that you see in the background, there are barley fields. Oh, there's one of our fields there. And this is part of Michael Scully's farm. We added it into the farm, when we started making the decision to, to start up this venture. We bought some fields right in Gallyhead. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely wonderful, scenic. But the fact that the barley is also growing there, I think, is really interesting, because people are more interested now, let's say, than they were in previous times about where something is grown as much as what is being grown. So that, as you can see, again, that's a warehouse in the background where the arrow is. So we're maturing our whiskey also as close to the sea as possible. Now, again, there's great discussions, especially with Islay whiskey, exactly how much influence the sea has, on the whiskey itself. We're going to find out. We're not going to. This isn't something to be rushed. So we'll find out in time. In 10 years' time, I think it would be interesting to see how much of the actual notes from the salty sea come through on the whiskey. Good thing about Clonakilty, there's no industry there. There's no pollution. All the air, the wind just comes straight in. It's right on the west coast. So everything from America, all that Atlantic wind blows over, completely pollution free. We have our own well that we use right on the farm as well. So we try and do as much as we can locally. And that's one of the things. So as well as what people would say about reducing the carbon footprint and everything, which is important, it's also the fact that we can say, well, listen, we know where everything comes from. And I think going forward, that's going to become more and more important, that where your stuff comes from. So the water, the barley, and the yeast, obviously, are the three things, the components of Irish whiskey, and we know where they all come from. There's one of the whales. If you ever manage to get to Clonakilty, August, September is great whale watching. That Michael Scully's, that's his dad and his 2 sons. They're just looking at the harvest. One of the sons is in Toronto, the other one is in Oregon selling our whiskey. So they're both in the family business. And this is, I'll talk about the barley strains that we're using later on, but I think it's a wonderful place to go. And anybody that goes on to any of these Zoom calls, if you go to Ireland and if you plan to go to Clonakilty, please let us know. We'll organize, a VIP tour for you and all the rest of the stuff, because I think if you've come all the way from America, then you deserve a little bit more than the normal tour, which is also good. But we have a little bit of a VIP tour as well. So that's the video.
Park, I have a question
Like
from the group
introduce,
right out of the gate, if
to,
you'd like.
Oh, Alan, I can't hear you. Have you muted yourself?
No, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, so I have a question from the group that I started off. They want to know, do your barrel rings degrade faster being that close to the sea?
They do. Yeah, they get a bit rustier. They do, definitely. But we haven't got any problems yet about the barrels are inspected pretty often. We don't have we have them on pallets, so we can take the pallet down, have a look at it, and make sure everything is okay. But there is a little bit more rust than there would be if it was, miles inland. That's for sure. By the way, I think we should start on the first one. The last thing, I was at a whiskey course one time, and I had 4 whiskeys ahead, and the guy wouldn't open the first one like for about 3/4 of an hour. It was drove me mad. So if you got the tasting sheet, if we can start from left to right, the first one is a single grain Bordeaux.
I lost it.
And let me just put it up. This is an interesting whiskey because this is something that all the whiskeys that you're going to taste tonight are all sourced, because we started our first distillation in 2019. So obviously, Irish whiskey being 3 years old anyway, none of it is ready. So we sourced whiskey when we started this project in 2016. We sourced whiskey, we put it in the warehouse right on the Atlantic coast, and we bought some grain whiskey for blending. And then Paul, which is our distiller and blender, he put some of it into some Bordeaux casks, and he started playing with it. And actually he said, listen, this is actually quite good on its own. And he put some of it into first fill Bordeaux, and then some of it into second fill Bordeaux. So what you get, so half and half. So what you get is a 10-year-old, first of all. So there's a maturity in this grain whiskey that you wouldn't necessarily get from all grain whiskey. The first fill Bordeaux Saint-Emilion cask gives it a sort of fruitiness, and the second fill, it gives the sort of European oak, the tannins from the European oak come through. So when he started, tasting this, and then it was coming towards 10 years, he said, "Listen, we can bring this out as a separate standalone whiskey," and we did. We're discontinuing it this year just because basically it's been such a victim of its own success. We don't have enough grain whiskey to continue selling it on its own, but I love it. I think it's a really interesting whiskey. Grain whiskey by itself obviously is a simpler whiskey. It comes off a column still. It comes off as 2% ABV. Then it's put in. So a lot of it depends on what cask it goes into, but it does show you really what finishing can do to a whiskey. And so you can get strawberries and creams, the fruitiness of this. I like it. Somebody described actually in Westboro up in Alan, that time I met you, somebody the next day after I met you said this is a breakfast whiskey, which I thought was a great description.
All right. Well, we're getting comments of coconut and honeysuckle from the group.
Yeah.
I would jump in here real quick and say, this right here, you may recognize that. That's from your fields out there.
No way.
I went out there a couple of years ago and met Michael, and we went up. That was right after the building was purchased, and it was still in the demo phase. So that's how long it's been. And I had the pleasure/horror of driving from the distillery out to his property with him in his car. It was quite a white knuckle harrowing experience.
Oh, he drove in his car, did he?
Yeah, he drove me in his car, and I was wishing I would have walked.
Wow. Well, the fields are still there. We've done a few harvests since then, and so you haven't seen the building with the equipment in it at all, then, have you?
I saw it down there downtown, and literally the flooring was still in it, and it was not even really begun demo. So, cheers to you for doing such a great job on
Cheers.
stuff.
Thank you very much. No, it's we're trying to figure out if there's any chance of people being able realistically to fly this year, from the US to Ireland. I'm not sure if things will be open. You be able to fly once you're vaccinated. I mean, I can fly now because I've got my vaccination, but everything is closed. We're not allowed to open anything. So the restaurant is closed, the visitor center is closed. So, it's not much of an experience for people.
We lost it.
And that's probably going to last until June or July. So
Fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. But yeah, I saw some comments. Let me just open the comments here. Yeah, some surprising depth for a grain. Yeah, there is, and that's one of the things that somebody asked me. Well, why don't you, keep the range going, but just have a younger grain whiskey? And I'm not sure that a younger grain whiskey would have the complexity. So I think we'd be making a mistake by just swapping out, the 10-year-old grain with a younger grain, because I'm not sure that it would, the bottles would stand side by side, or the batches would stand side by side. Because where's my thing? So each of these, sure, there's a batch number on it. So what I have in front of me is batch 5. There's 1,500 bottles, so they're pretty small batches. And one of the things we like to talk about is that, we have them, let me share this. We call them our small batches of perfection. So basically Paul will take 3 or 4 casks, disgorge the casks into the blending tank, then we'll filter them, and then, we do what we call the gentle cut. We add water very, very slowly, and then we bottle it. So you will not find, so my single batch here is 1,600 bottles. My 4th cask is 1,600. I have this one here, 750 bottles. So it really is, everything is small batch. The batches would vary very slightly, and that's just because obviously when you have 4 casks, and each cask is different, you're going to get a very slight difference between them. You'll get a slight difference in color. You'll get a slight difference in the flavors, what's coming through, what's not coming through. But, that's what you get a small batch. Obviously, the big guys, they can't do that, and they don't want problems or customers saying that, that the whiskey tasted differently 3 months ago than it did today when they bought the new bottle. We don't, that's not, obviously, we're at a different scale. We're at a different way of approaching whiskey and everything. So, we don't have a problem with that.
I think it's fun to embrace that. I mean, people who enjoy wine don't mind having different vintages, same wine, same brewery or same winery. And they're like, oh, that year is better than that year. And I think.
Yeah, but if you think about it, listen, I 100% agree with you, but one of the things, chill filtering, which is a thing we don't do, but most of the large whiskey distillers, both in Ireland and in Scotland, do, which is basically, and this is consumer driven. In the 1950s and 1960s, the consumers were giving out when they put water into the whiskey that it was becoming hazy. And it was becoming hazy, just because of what was in the whiskey. And then they discovered this way that if you took the whiskey down to basically freezing point, put it through a filter, and then, then you have, you trap a lot of the goodness, the flavors of the whiskey, the congeners of the whiskey in the filter, but you come out with a whiskey that when you add water to it, it won't go hazy. So this is one of those things that's consumer driven as much as consumers of the, the high volume whiskeys, the brands we all know, they want to know it's the same whiskey, year in, year out. That's why they have to add caramel coloring to it. They have to chill filter it, and they have to make sure, that every batch is exactly the same.
Are the single grain bottles that are over here on the shelves now, are those the last ones, or is there another shipment coming, you think, before it gets discontinued?
No, that's it. We have 400 cases left in New Jersey, and that's it. So wherever they go, that's it. We're not taking any more over.
Okay. So people, if you see it on the shelf and you like it, you should grab it while you can. Yeah,
definitely. What are we in now? We're in April, May, June. By September it's going to be gone. At least, the latest September. Obviously, we still be able to get.
This is delicious. I love it.
I was able to pick up a bottle a week ago. I found it in the store in Massachusetts, so I grabbed it. But I knew that it might be the last time I see it.
What was the price, Al? What was the price?
About $42 in Massachusetts.
There.
Yeah, that's actually a good price out for Massachusetts. Has a lot of taxes on it.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I kind of thought that too. They had them all priced the same, and I saw it, and I already have a bottle of the double oaks. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna grab this now while I can, because I've seen it at other stores much higher. So I definitely saw that as a bargain.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I would say it's definitely a bargain for $42. Yeah, definitely. So
How many states are you in now?
we're in 14.
Ah.
So basically on the East Coast and Oregon. And in the next couple, we've done a small shipment to Iowa. We're going to be in Texas, California, Georgia, Washington State. Our next states that we want to be in.
Poor old Missouri, always gets skipped over. But you got Iowa. I feel kind of disrespected on that one.
You're right in the middle. You're too far away from the coast to get anything.
Yeah, I was good until you said Iowa.
No, actually, you know what it was? It wasn't that we got an order. We got an email from Iowa's a control state. We just got an email saying somebody wants to buy your whiskey. Will you ship it to Iowa? So I said, well, okay, if you pay the price, we'll ship it, right? So it was just by consumer ordering it. That's the control state system, right? When we decide what states we're going to go into, obviously we get a list. We can see the volume each state. We have a person in each state, so we wouldn't go into a state, with the exception of New Hampshire, is the only state we're in that we don't have a person in the state.
Oh.
So if
So who do I contact in California, in the Los Angeles area?
Well, Anne, we'll be in Anne, who is our rep in DC. She's moving to California in August. So her job will be to get into liquor stores but we have, in one store, we got a double gold in San Francisco for an Imperial Stout cask finish, right? And it's in one store. We shipped it to one store in California. And if you like, it's really good whiskey. It's Paul, our distiller, said that it was actually the best whiskey that he had blended and produced. It was like a year ago now.
Well, if it's anything near this first tasting, yes, I'm very interested.
No, well, I would say that people have said to me, they're all like my children, and I don't want to say one is better than the other.
Of course,
But,
and I haven't tried the others yet, so I don't know.
I'm going to tell the name of it's Village Liquor is the name of the place. So I have no idea.
Is it Northern or Southern California? Do you know?
It's near LA. Where are you?
I'm in just like 12 miles from downtown Los Angeles.
Right. Well, just
So I can just
It's only
put
a
it in.
4-hour ride in traffic, right?
Actually, since today I was in traffic just before the meeting, and I didn't know if I would make it in time. I had 45 minutes to get home, and I actually made it in 30. So I had a
Yes.
little extra time. So
It's in a place called Crescenta Montrose. La Crescenta Montrose. Does that
oh,
mean
La
anything to you?
Crescenta. Yes, okay, I know. It's not too far. Okay.
It's 2905 Honolulu Avenue.
All right.
Yeah.
Write
La
that down.
Crescenta. And they have so
And it's Village Liquors.
Village Liquors, yeah. And the guy's name is Danny in Village Liquors. Now, the last time I spoke to him, he had like 3 bottles left. We did a taste, a whiskey and bourbon society or something, and they took it in. It really is. It's a stout, a stout cask. So it was an Imperial Stout cask finish from a New England brewing company near New Haven. And it turned out really well.
All right,
Really,
Diana.
really well.
Two
I'll
for
see
you.
if they have anything left. If not, let Ann
They
know
probably have
that Mission Liquors is the place to go too. So
Mission Liquors. Okay, I'm going to make a note of that.
You also want to try High Times Liquor in Costa Mesa, California.
Oh, I was looking at that. Awesome.
Well, if I can tell you a little, how many are there? Many people here from Massachusetts other than yourself?
Yeah, we have
don't know.
4 or 5, I think.
Because I don't want to be, too critical of Massachusetts,
Yeah.
but
Don't worry
Sean,
about it.
Sean went from Massachusetts to Oregon, and when we launched in Massachusetts, Sean was there and was sort of slow, and then he was in Oregon, and he was like selling whiskey left and right. And I said to Sean, I said, what's the difference? Well, how come you're doing so well in Oregon? And, you know, you're doing okay in Massachusetts. He said, the thing is, in Massachusetts, the first question people ask is, how much does it cost? He said, in Oregon, they say, well, tell us your story. Who are you? And tell us the story. So and then when I was talking to the people in LA, this lady who was on the tasting, she said, this is LA. People love the story. It's all about the story in LA. This is the world center of stories, right? LA and Hollywood and all the rest.
Well, fantasies, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, but a good story. People like to hear a good story.
Sure.
And so, yeah, no, we're excited to be in California. If California was a country, it would be the 6th biggest importer of Irish whiskey.
So another question on the single grain, wanting to know how this one differs from the limited series you did for Irish malts a couple of years ago. Or if it's different or if it's not different. Yeah, Adam,
was it a single grain limited edition Irish malts?
That was a Bordeaux limited Bordeaux series from 19. I'll admit I don't remember that one.
He's showing you the bottle.
Oh, Brian has the bottle, so.
Brian has done, I suspect it's a higher ABV, is it?
Yep.
Yeah. It would be the same in terms of the fact that it is 50-50 in first fill and second fill Bordeaux. So it's just a higher ABV.
Almost like a cask strength difference.
Yes.
I missed that. I missed what
They were asking about the cask strength difference, because this one here is at, I think all of yours are at the 43.6.
Yeah.
0.6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are we ready to move on to the second one, or we can still keep talking? I'm going to share.
Move on to the second one.
Okay. Well, before we move on, there's a picture of, for those of you who have never been to Clonakilty, that's what it looks like. That's our distillery. Was a bank building in it was going to be the headquarters of an Irish bank. It built in 2007, and obviously we all know what happened in 2008. Lay there for like 6 or 7 years, and then we bought it, and then we I think everybody would agree it's probably better to be a distillery than a bank, right?
Yes.
3 triple distilled. You can see the 3 stills. This is when you all go to Ireland, go to Clonakilty, go upstairs, and this is, after you do your tour, you can sit down in sort of a nice little comfortable environment. There's a little bar there and all that sort of stuff. That's what it looks like. Again, on a blue sky day. That's the inside. That's gentleman from Boston there, Bob, and at Stills. So if we move on to the next whiskey, and this is an interesting whiskey because this whiskey, I suppose, has gone through an evolution in that it started off an evolution both in its taste and its presentation. And we started off as our flagship whiskey, which was the single batch, as we call it, the single batch. And we were finishing it, so it was obviously it was a blend, most of its life was in bourbon, and we were finishing it in virgin American oak casks. And then we met this guy from France, this guy here called Alexander Sacon, and he was working on a different type of cask finish. So let's take a trip over to Scotland for a second. In Scotland, they have what are called STR casks. And STR cask is shaved, toasted, recharred casks, which was introduced into the whiskey industry by Dr. Jim Swan, who is no longer with us, who is a legend in Scotch whiskey. And STR casks were used to help the maturation of the whiskey. So basically to mature it quicker. And the STR casks were American oak, shaved, toasted, recharred. Alexander got the idea. He said, well, let's not rechar it. Let's just toast it. So and he called it cold toasting, because you can see what you see here in the middle is basically a toasting that goes on for about an hour and a half. So rather than toast it quickly, he puts the coals down for like an hour and a half. And you can see on the right, you can see basically what the finish is. So it's not a char, it's just a toasting. So he takes these red Bordeaux wine barrels, shaves them and toasts them. And we went back to our single batch, and then we put some of it into these Neoc casks and some of it into the virgin oak casks. And the flavor profile was completely different straight away. And what you have is the Neoc cask from Chateau Mouton de Rothschild. So it adds more complexity to it. And we entered with the single batch double oak, we entered into San Francisco, we got a double gold, 2020 World Whiskey Awards, Best Irish Blended Whiskey. So not just us, but other people have also realized that actually this is actually quite good whiskey. And it used to be the case that the port cask, which is the next one we're going to try after this, was our biggest seller in the US, but this one for sure this year is going to outstrip the port cask, I would say. Probably, maybe not 2-to-1, but nearly 2-to-1. And I think what I find with tastings is that people who like Irish whiskies have maybe tried Irish whiskies and then they want something with a little bit more complexity, will go for this one, the single batch double oak. Whereas people who may be coming from bourbon will go for either the Bordeaux cask or they'll go for the port cask. So.
Really? I would have thought the bourbon people would have liked this because of the concentration of the virgin oak.
Well, yeah, I know that. And it's funny you say that, but I try and do as many tastings myself as possible. And obviously I talk to our people, our 10 or 11 people we have in the market. And yes, you're right. I would have thought so as well. But I think the port cask, it's a little bit sweeter, it's a little bit fruitier. I think it's a lot of the bourbon with the corn, it's a little bit sweeter, right? And I think that's why it's either the Bordeaux cask or the port cask that they would.
They're looking for something different from what they get with their bourbon.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think this one, if you're an Irish whiskey drinker, and obviously all of you are, I think you'll find, there's a complexity to this that you wouldn't necessarily get in all of Irish whiskeys that you might have tried.
Good.
I'm going to stop the share there and have a look at
Mm.
this one. Yes, Brian is, yes, this is, I should have said, this is a blend, right? So the first one obviously was a single grain. This is a blend of malt and grain. And it's like 8-year-old malt, 10-year-old grain. So it's the same grain whiskey in it. So it's the youngest whiskey in this 7 or 8 years old. So. Yeah, Nicholas's question, was something else coming out to replace the single grain? Yes. And I think we're probably going to go with a single malt. So we can get some single malt sources again, obviously, and do some finishing with it. So I think we'll do that.
So you don't think you're not going to come out with a new single new single grain?
No, and just because there's not a lot of older single grain out there. There's a lot of younger single grain, and I don't want to put a younger single grain into the same bottle.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see if you get people that once it's gone and I'll be interested in the reaction you get, where people will be asking you guys for when you're coming out with another single grain because they like it so much.
Yeah. But we are getting single grain. We have some younger single grain, but it's like 4 years old, 5 years old. So
yeah,
we'll just put it away for a while and keep it there,
Always leave them wanting more, right?
Yeah. But I think it's funny again, when I did a tasting down here locally, a couple of months ago, and of course, Florida was open for tastings the whole way through. This guy comes in and I said, would you like to taste Irish whiskey? He goes, is it a single malt or is it a blend? I said, well, it's a blend. Oh, I'm not interested. Just, he turned around and went to the guy behind. He said, where are your single malts? And, went off on the single malt thing. And it's fine. I always say there's some wonderful single malts, but there's also wonderful blends, even in the Scotch. The Compass Box, what they have done with blends, there's wonderful blends. This idea that the only good whiskey can be a single malt, whether it's Irish, Scottish, it's not true. There's an art to blending. And the cognac people in France will tell you that as well, and the people, anyone making wine will tell you there's an art to blending. But the Scotch guys, I think in the 50s and 60s had a free run at everything. And, they obviously wanted to upsell, and they convinced everybody that if it's not a single malt, then, you shouldn't pay sort of top dollar for it. You should pay top dollar for single malt. And if you want it cheaper, then you just go for a blend. So this idea of blends are cheap, single malt is where it should be. We're telling people and we're showing people that's an outdated sort of concept.
Well, that little sample of grain that you just did just drives that point home.
Yeah.
Got quality whiskeys at both ends of the spectrum, so marrying them together just brings the best of both worlds. You bring that wood in with that grain so much, and then you bring the pop of the barley and the malt in with this.
Yeah.
I agree with you though about, I don't know how it is elsewhere, but at least with Americans with the single malt, it's like a status thing and they can't get past it.
Yeah, it is. It is. 100% agree with you. But it's like everything else, it's education, right? When I started coming over here and this, in 2018, and I went into a liquor store in New York, for example, you wouldn't, and I'd see Clonakilty there at $50, $52, whatever. That would be one of the more expensive whiskeys in New York in 2018 on the shelf. But if you go in there now, you see all the spots, obviously, from Pernod. Blue Spot, by the way, wonderful whiskey. We'll say nothing against Blue Spot, but with the spots, with the red breasts and everything, it's an education thing. People wouldn't have spent $100, $120 on an Irish whiskey even 3 years ago, or very few people would have, right? Very, very small niche of people would actually know, or would actually, take a decision to buy a $120 whiskey. Now, my local liquor store is selling a bottle of Blue Spot for $260. I know you can get it elsewhere in the States for less, but and he had 5 people ringing him for it, and they had such a small allocation. So obviously that's not good either. That's not a healthy thing to have, but it's it's interesting. It just shows it's but it's not healthy. But at the same time, he's telling his friends, oh, these Irish whiskeys, and they can't believe there's an Irish whiskey that is on allocation. Even more, we all know what the Blanton's thing is all about and all the rest of the stuff. But, Blue Spot for me, beautiful. For a 7-year-old single pot still, Blue Spot is actually top class. But what they've done in Pernod, and again, the small guys, I see sometimes smaller guys criticizing, Pernod and these guys for what they do to the market. But at the same time, if they hadn't spent all the marketing dollars over the last 15 years in the US, we wouldn't be here.
We've talked about it as a group, it's going to take some time. We kind of saw it with the tequila market.
Yeah.
If you go back 20 years ago, you basically had 2 tequilas. You had Cuervo and Patron, and tequila was very much thought of as just a shooter, back then. And it's kind of Irish whiskeys, in some ways paralleling that, because with Jameson first came on with all their marketing dollars, and it kind of became the shot of choice in all the bars here in America. And it may still be, but now you look at tequila and there's hundreds of tequilas on the shelves, and they're all these high-end ones. So, so Irish whiskey may follow that pattern. It's just going to take all these new craft distilleries to get into, get on the shelves and educate people. And, so it just may take a little longer than you want, maybe, but I see it happening in the same way, maybe. So that's
Yeah.
that's the hope.
That's the hope. But I mean, even again, going back to my experience, even over the last 3 years, there's more real estate now in the Irish whiskey section than there used to be. That's for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think liquor store owners know also that the average age of the Scotch whiskey drinker is maybe 15 years older than the Irish whiskey drinker. I'm not sure what that number is, but it's definitely, somewhere between 10 and 20 years older, because of the fact that Pernod and Grants with Tullamore Dew were going for the younger demographic, 10 or 15 years ago. Now these people obviously have more dollars in their wallets now than they had before, and now they're moving up, up the scale. So all of that is good for us.
Wait, now that I'm older, I'm supposed to have more money? I missed that memo.
Theoretically, yes. But in college, I have no idea what I suspect you might have a few more bucks than you did when you were 20 years old, right?
Yeah, a few more bills too.
Well, that's also true. That's also true.
This is good.
Have you found, maybe when talking with Paul, and as you guys have you guys done anything yet with the single pot stills? Have you experimented with that yet, or?
We have. We've got. We got best Irish new make last year in the World Whiskey Awards as well. So we have. I mean, obviously, it's going to be. So it's like April, May of next year. It's going to be officially a whiskey.
Oh.
We will not bring it out as a single pot still until probably 2025. Late 24, early 25 will be the first expression we'll have as a Clonakilty single pot still. We may use a small bit of it for blending, but I think I was listening to a podcast from Teeling, from one of the guys from Teeling's about a year ago, and he said officially, he said, we made a mistake. We brought out our single pot still too early. And I think Dingle did as well. I remember I tried the single pot still from Dingle in their bar just crossing Trinity College in Dublin. I thought it wasn't ready. And I think they'll probably say that as well. It's the worst. It's the nightmare whiskey, right? So grain matures first, peated second, single malt third, and then single pot still way back at the back of the queue.
Yeah, that's what we've been finding. We've been sampling a lot of the new stuff, and it's kind of the same thing. That it needs more time, but it's been nice that there have been new entrants in the category other than from Middleton. But I think that's the general consensus is they all need definitely more time.
Yeah, and I think you can't blame them either, right? Because
no, definitely not.
It's cash flow, right? So
yep.
I think we're conscious of the fact that with the way social media is and everything is, it's very easy to criticize, also. So, but I think Paul knows that. I think we have some great backers with us also, who understand that this thing can't be rushed, and they're very happy with it, how it's going. And we had some people from Middleton down and they thought it was great, but they also said, listen, it's 5 or 6 years, please do yourselves a favor, don't bring it out before 5 or 6 years.
Have you guys talked, because this is a question that comes up or discussion point with all the new craft distilleries and the ones that are doing a sourced product, that's popular and selling, how you're going to handle the transition when you have your own stuff? Are you just going to try to, I guess, how are you going to handle that?
We'll just bring it out as another expression, and that's it. So we'll keep, we'll keep our single batch double oak, and we'll keep all the other ones what we're doing, and we'll bring it out as a separate expression, and that's it. But we'll have the same bottle, we'll have the same label, obviously, so people will be able to recognize it, and then
But so it would be at some point the double oak would be your. It would be your source. It wouldn't be the source.
No,
No, the double oak will be the double oak. So we'll have, it'll be Clonakilty single pot still down here or whatever. So this will always.
But will it
Yeah.
always be so? It won't always be sourced though.
Yeah,
I
well,
guess.
this is a very interesting question. You had that because there's obviously there's no single pot still in this at the moment.
Right.
So this is obviously single malt and grain. And what we will definitely bring in some, at least 5% of it from next year when we can, of our own single pot still.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to see what that effect has actually on the actual whiskey itself. Well, we're going to test that anyway beforehand before we bring it out. But yeah, I mean, obviously single pot still is an oiliness in single pot still that you don't have in this whiskey, right? So
Right.
you don't want to, at the same time, you don't want to completely change it. So you don't want a grain single pot still blend and then people are just like, hang on, this isn't what I bought a year ago, so you can't do that either. So I think if you look at what Teelings have done, Teelings have their own stuff. They still have their, they still have the source stuff, they still have their blends. I think the Teelings model is absolutely fine. I think you need to be transparent with people. You explain to them what it is, what is sourced, what is not sourced, and then, taste them and let people make up their own mind. We will never have a column still, so we're always going to have to source grain whiskey anyway. So anything we do with a blend.
Are you then aging only? Are you aging single malt then as well, or just pot still?
We've just done pot still. We haven't done any single malt either.
Okay. And then you said you answered my next question. So you don't have a column still, and you don't plan on it.
No, we don't plan on it. No. It's it's funny. We've done the numbers, and it's the cost of buying new make grain whiskey doesn't make any sense for you to actually set up your own column still and go through it.
Oh, especially since so much of it comes from the wood, and then you'll just control that.
Yeah.
Where do you source your grain from? Is it all local, or do you have a bunch of different sources?
We have a source in the eastern direction of where we are.
Okay.
Not the western direction. So that's all, So, but yeah.
Yeah. No trade secrets, right?
Yeah.
There's your hand.
So what do we think of that, folks? That one, the single batch double oak?
That
I
was
loved it.
Yeah, I like it.
I
Definitely.
like it better than the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing, number 2.
Two things I would be remiss if I didn't mention. One is what we call the gentle cut. So if you buy a bottle, I'm not sure if it's on the minis, but anyways, on the main bottle, we have the gentle cut. What does that mean? It means that we add water very, very slowly. So we add water over 2 weeks.
Okay.
Generally, in 99.9% of distilleries, because you have such little space and because you've got huge disgorgements, you take it out of the cask at cask strength, which is around, somewhere around 60%. You add water to it within 24 hours, and then you bottle it, and then it's out, gone. We add water over 2 weeks, and why we do that is that we've done various tastings. If you add water very quickly to whiskey, you can cause an exothermic reaction. There's a heat builds up, and sometimes, occasionally, you can get a soapiness out of from the whiskey, and especially when you don't chill filter it, you can actually taste it. So one of our people who are advising us to the start said, listen, why don't you try and add water very slowly and see what happens? And so we tasted the same whiskey with water added very quickly over 24 hours versus over 2 weeks, and the same whiskey tastes different if you add water over 2 weeks.
Wow, I've never heard that.
And
Fascinating.
I believe it or not, I was in Jacksonville 3 weeks ago, and I met this guy from Old Elk. Right, Old Elk. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's bourbon and rye. They do bourbon and rye, and he told me to do exactly the same thing. And I think we're the only ones with Old Elk who do that. And they did it. They scientifically tested it as well through tastings and all the rest of them. They came to the exact same conclusion. So they had water over 2 weeks as well. And he hadn't said, I tasted it. And I said to the guy, before he told me that, I said, this is the nicest bourbon I've ever tasted. I'm not a bourbon guy. I'm more of a rye guy. You know, I sort of missed the whole bourbon thing. But I said to him, it was a barrel pick for a bar in Jacksonville. We were up there because we were doing a competition. And I said, God, this is really good bourbon. He said, you know, we had water over 2 weeks and we're the only, I said, hang on, you're not the only ones who do that. You know, there was a marriage of minds. And then I looked back and I read an article about what they did. And so there you go. So, and they patented it, and they call it the slow cut. They don't call it the gentle cut. There's something I think they call it the slow cut or something. And they do the same thing. So we're not the only ones to do this.
Have you heard of any other, you don't have to name them, I'm just curious, have anybody else in Ireland kind of caught on to what you're doing in that regard and started doing it as well?
I think, and I'm not quite 100% sure, but I think Louise McGuan is doing it now down in Chapel Gate. I think she is. I haven't asked her, but I saw something that she commented on Twitter or something, so I think she's doing it as well.
Well, you know, that what's that saying about the best form of flattery is, you know, all that. So
well, there you go.
Start a trend.
Boan, the Neok cast, the one that I told you, the shaved toes, the Neok is now Boan, who are also really great guys. They're using Neok cast as well now. So we were the first to use it. So.
Yeah, Michael's great at Boan.
Yeah.
Alan, I just want to make sure that we open this up to those that are participating too, so we don't. Is there any questions other, you know, like you said, from the group? Anybody wants to speak up with questions? Either type them in or pop in.
I've been reading the questions as they've been coming in, I think. So, but yeah, certainly, please feel free to. If anybody has questions or just comments, but this has always been my favorite. This is the one I tried at Whiskey Live a few years ago when it first came out. I think at the time you had this and the port finish, and I liked this one better. And I remember I bought a bottle and brought it back with me. I can't remember if I got it. I know I have the bottle. It's the original labeling. And I know I got it in Ireland because it's a 700 ml, and I just don't remember if I got it at duty free or if I bought it in the store and put it in my suitcase. I can't remember.
What batch is that? Is the batch number on it, Alan? Just a matter of interest. Be on the neck label.
This is batch 3 from 2018.
Batch 3. So that was the last batch before we put Neok, before we put it into Neok cast. So from Neok cast was batch 4 onwards.
Can you explain
bit of history there
again? Can you explain that?
I'm sorry?
That type of cask, that cask that you're referring to?
Yeah, the Neok. The Neok cask is this one. Just let me share the screen here again. It's this one. So basically it's a red wine cask, shaved, and then the cold 1.5 hours of cold toasting in it.
All right.
And then that brings out, you know, some of the flavors.
Does that Neok refer to a style or a region?
Neok?
Oh, it's an acronym. Never mind.
It's an acronym, New Year off cask. Exactly. So STR being shaved, toasted, recharged, Neok. That's his name, yeah. New Year off cask, yeah. So. All right.
So a question, availability of the double oak on the US website.
It's on the US website for sure.
And I think, I don't know, some of you I know are in states that might not have it yet. But
yeah, we
can be delivered though, you know, as we did with these.
Yeah, it can be delivered to like 40 something states. Obviously there's a few difficult ones.
Well, you mean we can get a bottle of this delivered?
Yeah, well, depending on what state are you in, Diane?
Massachusetts.
Come on, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, you can go to Diane, I can get you a bottle without having to have it delivered.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to
it's a
make
bit,
sure we don't run out of this.
no. The first one, the grain is the one that you have to find in the stores. The double oak is pretty readily available in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good to know.
Um,
Thanks.
Yeah,
But if you see the single grain though in the store, that's the one that, grab it while you can.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
Um,
in Massachusetts, so the single batch double oak could also be called a single batch. So Alan, some of the bottles that you have there, it's the same whiskey from batch 4 onwards. We just changed the label, but it was a later introduction to Massachusetts. But it is, yeah.
Question has come up about the recent change that's going to allow the 700 milliliter
Yeah.
size bottles. How's that going to affect what you guys are doing, or is it?
It's not going to affect what we're going to do. We're still producing the 750s. For the gin, we are. So we have, I know it's not a gin crew, but we have this gin. And just because the bottle is very unique and they're phasing out the 750 bottle, we're going to go for the 700 and the gin. But for 750s, we're going to stick with the 750 for the whiskey.
Until you run out of those size bottles, and then you just make the switch, or
No.
That's almost a question for the whole industry. I'm just curious how that's all going to play out over time. If you're going to see more people just switch over to one size.
It's a very interesting question. And well, from our point of view, the manufacturer of the bottle is still, he said he's going to keep making, or they're going to keep making 750. So we don't have a problem with that. But one of our directors, there's 3 of us, he used to be the head of Pernod Ricard in the UK, Dennis. And he obviously knows all the guys in Middleton. So when the 700 was allowed in the US, I said, Dennis, can you ask your guys in Jameson, basically, what are they going to do? Because, they're going to be the lead. If Jameson and Bushmills and Tullamore Dew decide to move to 700s in the US, then I think everybody else will do it anyway. And they don't have any plans. As of now, they don't have any plans to switch. So, we're not going to be do it. Now, in saying that, if there was sort of one-off very special things, we might bring it out 700s, but generally our main whiskey, we're just going to stick with 750s anyway. So
I'm wondering if you're going to see any of the craft distillers that haven't got over here yet.
They will.
If that opens it up for them, easier for them to now get over here.
For sure. And I've seen 3 or 4 already, because obviously everything is online with the TTB. So the 3 or 4 already are bringing in the 700s. But I think the problem with us is that if you go into a liquor store and you say, or the distributor comes in and says, I have all these Clonakilty bottles and they're 700s, and you're going to put them beside the 750s, people are going to get really confused, because they're going to see a single batch double oak 750 for a period of time, right? Or is it going to be separately priced? And it's just a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. We don't.
You do what the ice cream industry did. They used to sell, when I was young, it used to be a half gallon all the time. Now it's like 1.75 gallons or something like that, or 1.75 quart. They went and got smaller and kept the price same. So you could do, whiskey industry could do the same thing.
Yeah, we've talked. Yeah, but you don't want to be,
you don't want to be the first one.
You don't really want to replicate. We would have to reduce the price. I think we'd have to, and it's just so much of a hassle of doing it that I just say, listen, we keep it.
We didn't embrace the metric system here. Tough to change old habits.
I honestly wish we would have, to tell you the truth. I get tired of Googling equivalent.
Yeah.
Except there is one highway in the US in kilometers. Does anybody know which one it is?
No.
It's in New Mexico.
I was going to say, is it Alligator Alley in Florida?
No, it's in New Mexico. I don't know why. There's like one, and it's all in kilometers. And
yeah, but in Ireland, they talk about miles per hour all the time, or miles and miles per hour. No, they talk about, they use miles in some way. I don't know when I'm driving.
Where?
In Ireland.
On Ireland, yeah, with people, you know, depending what age you are, you sort of
Yeah.
still think about miles, right? So.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with the bottles over time.
Yeah.
But the hope would be, I guess, that we see a bunch of these, the companies that we've had to buy online that are able to get on the shelves here, you know, because they
Yeah.
can, you know, because they only want to spend on the one size bottle.
Hey,
You know
being
what?
respectful of people's time, do we want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, we're going to move on, and we'll just move on to the podcast. But my last point was, and I think I remember thinking that even if we go to the distributor and we say we're reducing our price by 6% or whatever, just because it's a smaller bottle, there's no guarantee the liquor store owner isn't going to put the same price on it anyway. And then, you know, you get a bad reputation.
Oh, right.
Or a guy has decided that he's going to, you know, keep the same price, right? Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, the port cask. Our first bottling actually was the port cask. And it taught us a couple of different things, and one of which is not to use the filter that everybody else uses. So what does that mean? When you're taking whiskey out of a cask, there's a lot of little bits of charcoal and everything from the cask itself. So you need a filter to actually make sure none of that gets into the bottle, so you don't see anything in the bottle at the bottom of the bottle. And the standard is 8 microns, which is pretty small. And we were doing that with our port cask, and we were filtering away, and then we could see that the color of the whiskey was suddenly, you know, disappearing. And we opened up the filter, and we could see not just was it taking all the little flecks of charcoal, but it was also taking a lot of the goodness of the whiskey out of it. So we started playing with the filter, and now we filter this at 31 microns. And again, if you filter something at 8 microns, is really, really small holes, and 31 microns, you get an awful lot more of the flavor to come through at 31 microns. So the industry standard 8, we're using 31. The human eye can see flecks of anything at 32 microns. So we're just,
Oh, wow.
there you go, a little bit of science. Apparently, that's what I've been told. I wear glasses, so I haven't tested it myself.
Yeah, I probably can't say anything about 200 microns.
Well, what's wrong with a few flecks? It just makes it a little more chewy. That's not bad.
Well,
yeah.
I was in Texas, and I was looking at this Irish, I picked up this bottle of Irish whiskey, and then suddenly all of this stuff at the bottom started moving sediment.
Nice.
And I said to myself, actually, I don't really want to buy that bottle, because I don't know, you know, it's a thing, right? You don't want to see sediment. And especially if it's sitting in the liquor store for like a while, right? You don't want it. So we don't want to necessarily have sediment in the whiskey either, right? So anyway, so this is a port cask. Probably about 6 months.
That nose is amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this was our first expression, because we wanted to show, basically, of course, we're sourcing our whiskey, so what can we do to show off the effect of the wood, the casks? And we got some great port casks. We only use them once. They're expensive as hell, but we don't throw them away. We put our single pot still is going into them, and they're, you know, reused again. But it's really interesting. There's a fruitiness to it. There's a sweetness to it that you didn't get from the single batch double oak, for sure.
Well, that's the nose of the day.
I think it's an interesting whiskey. But if you're a bourbon drinker, can you see why bourbon drinkers might go for this one more than any of the other ones?
Maybe the sweet. Boy, the port. Boy, that is just
The
something.
port, obviously, there's not the corn in it that you have bourbon, but
Sweetness to it, I think that the bourbon drinkers would be drawn to.
exactly. I think that's what it is. And the rum, when I'm down here tastings in Miami or whatever, if they're rum drinkers, I always say, listen, try this as well. You know, you got a little sweetness in that as well from the sugar cane, right?
I like the little bite at the end.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan
peppery.
of Bushmills, Black Bush. And I like that spiciness that at the end of your taste. And this one, and I'm a big fan of peaches. So there's that sweet aroma, slight lingering peach taste feel.
Yeah.
With the good bite, I think. And I'm not a big bourbon drinker, so.
No, it's just on the edge for me of being almost too sweet, but not too sweet.
Yeah, it's a nice mix. To me, it's a nice mix of the sweet with the pepper.
Well,
That's what I get.
Internally, of the people who are doing tasting, obviously, you know, and Zoom tastings, everybody likes to have their own. I think this is the one to finish with. Some people like to start with the single batch double oak. I like to start with the Bordeaux, but definitely everybody likes to finish with the port cask just because of that extra fruitiness, or sweetness doesn't give you the sort of the right impression. I'm not very good at describing it, but fruitiness is.
I think it's just a hint of that when you have a peach, that's smooth, sweet. It's not a heavy, it's more of just a hint of it to me.
Yep.
Is this generally available?
It is. Yeah.
That's the one I'm looking for. That one and the double O.
That one and the other two, right? Well, what's great about it too is that they're all unique, you know, so.
Yeah, it's a good little.
Yeah, they're different flavors, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
You can kind of, you know, go to different ones depending on what your mood is that night.
Exactly. And I'd love to say that we planned it that way, but we didn't. It just turned out that way.
Well, good job.
You know,
Yeah,
Good, good.
sometimes it's
pass
better
it on.
to be lucky than good sometimes, they say.
Exactly. So Napoleon liked his lucky generals, not his good generals, right? Yeah. No.
Well,
So
There's
now
a
you
hint
have
of
whiskey
cream at
for
the end
breakfast
too.
and a whiskey for dessert.
yeah. One of the things, and I'm not giving away any great secrets, we're working on as a real challenge. We're trying to produce a whiskey which would be for cigar smokers. I'm not sure anybody here smokes cigars, but there isn't any. So Dalmore have a cigar malt, obviously. $160, non-age statement cigar malt, finished in sherry. But we're trying to work on something which wouldn't be $160, but would be uniquely Irish, but also would be able to, you know, be suitable for cigars. So this is one of the projects we're working on. And it's all, the finish is very important on that one also. So, you know, it's one of the, it's a challenge to do it properly. So it's just.
How do you
sometimes we
approach
can get-
that? Is it based on, because there's all kinds of different cigars too. So I'm curious how you guys even like tackle that project.
Well, fortunately where I live, it's like the cigar smokers everywhere, you know, and obviously Ybor City near Tampa, right, which was one of the big places. So I spent a lot of time talking to cigar smokers, asking them what were they drinking, why were they drinking it, what did they like about it, what they didn't like about it. So it sort of developed a sort of a profile of what people would like to see in a whiskey from a cigar smoking point of view. And as I said, the market research was very pleasant. I wasn't a cigar smoker before I started. I am now. You know, you run up a lot of cleaning bills, obviously, when you go to these cigar places. But you know, it's an interesting project. So hopefully we'll have something. Don't want to give too much away, but hopefully we'll have something coming out towards the end of the year on that one. I think it'd be really interesting. It's a niche thing. Obviously, it's not for everybody. if
I'm
you're
right
not a
here.
cigar-
I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here.
Okay.
Good.
And I think some people that are familiar with the brand too are probably have seen a lot of your limited runs with the beer cask finishes.
Yes. And yeah. So we did one, oh, this is the one we did here, which was the 26 degree brewing one. We did we've done about 7, I think, so far, have come back into the market, and we've got another 5 we sent
beer barrels from like 4 different breweries in the last 2 weeks to Ireland. And we're also doing so, and that's a local thing. So for example, so the Imperial Stout cask from New Haven in Connecticut, we did Revival Brewing down in Rhode Island, Stout, Massachusetts. Although I think some of it is up in Boston as well. We're doing one with Jack Sabby. Alan, you'd know Jack Sabby,
Yes,
right?
yeah, I was talking about that
to
just
John.
the other day with John. Yes, he was. So then kind of got me excited about it.
Yeah, and we're doing, so we did one at Bowl City Brewing in Jacksonville, Three Daughters in Tampa. So we do, yeah, so it's a, but we're doing barrel swap at Catoctin Creek Rye in Virginia, and with Garrison Brothers in Texas as well. So we're going to send them barrels, they're sending us barrels, so we're going to see. I think it's going to be interesting with Catoctin Creek, which are the rye barrels, how that's going to, so we're going to put some of our whiskey into those rye barrels. And I'm a big fan, I think I've said it already, rye, so be interesting to see what that'll come back at. And we've done, what else have we done? We did this one for a rugby team. This is rum, RHUM. So from Martinique, we've done a rum cask finish for this rugby club down in DC. This cask strength rum, which is actually really nice. I'm not sure how many of you tried rum cask finishes of Irish whiskey, but that's a really nice, interesting one. So we can do the small batches, and I think that's one of the things hopefully people will see that we can do with the flexibility we have. We're open to do different experiments and different things, and working with people who have the same sort of mindset that we do about having a little bit of fun doing what we're doing, but taking it seriously at the same time. And, Paul isn't going to let anything out. We've had a few experiments that didn't work out, and, there's no way we're going to let them out in the market because, as we all know, if you're a small startup, all you need is one mistake and then everybody will remember you for the mistake. If you're sort of a couple of 100 years old making whiskey, if you make one mistake, nobody will care, right? So that's the difference. So you need to make sure everything is tip top.
What do you guys, have you talked about, I know it doesn't matter now because we can't go, but when you are able to open again for tours and stuff, will you have kind of distillery exclusives?
Yeah, we have. Well, there's a few there already. There is a distillery exclusive. It's a cognac finish.
Nice.
Cask strength cognac finish, I think, distillery exclusive, but yeah. And I think one of the things that we're really looking forward to are, barrel picks, and people going to Ireland for barrel picks and all that sort of stuff, which obviously people can't do at the moment. So we're working out different alternatives, but we're looking forward to whiskey clubs and groups. And I think this is definitely going to be, I have a feeling that, because people have been at home for the last 15 months or whatever it is now, that there's just going to be, people will want to leave and go somewhere even more than they normally would because of the fact that they've been sitting at home, driving their husbands, wives, children, parents mad, whatever it is, for the last 15 months.
I think I got a question. I'm not, there's no sarcasm emoji, but so Brian, you're either a big fan of the new orange flavored whiskey, or so they want to know if you guys are how crazy experimenting you're getting there on the wild winning.
Very good question. And again, as I said, Dennis, the third director, used to work for Pernod. So when I saw the Jameson orange, I sent it to him and said, what's going on there? So he was talking to the guys. 30% of whiskey in the US is flavored. 30.
Oh,
I was shocked. And I
so embarrassing.
Embarrassing or not, it is what it is. As President Trump said, it is what it is. It's like Southern Comfort is number one. Actually, call it out. I think I still have it. I may have deleted it. So Southern Comfort, the Screwball's, Fireball is second. Screwball is third. And then you have Jack Daniel's Honey. No, I'm struggling again. There's another Jack Daniel's, but it's further down. There's Jack Daniel's Pear or Apple or something.
You're gonna tell us that you've got a peanut butter whiskey coming out?
We do not have a peanut butter whiskey, and
Those are
the day
getting
it'll be brought
popular.
out, I'm going to tender my resignation.
Okay. We'll hold you to that.
We're not going to go there. No, we're not. I mean,
I did taste Screwball. I capitulated. I'm like, okay, fine, let me try. And it was disgusting.
I tasted Screwball in November 2019. I was in Manchester, New Hampshire at a trade show. And our distributor came up to me and said, you got to try this stuff. This is like amazing and yada, yada, yada. So I went down, I tried it, and it was a thimbleful, right? And it was fine. But if somebody would say to me, would you drink a glass of it? I'd say, no way, right? You can just drink a little thimbleful. It's interesting, you know, as much as you try any liqueur or whatever. But it's like crazy, you know, it's just 30% now. I mean, I would have thought that it was like less than 10%. I would have thought that it's flavored whiskey, but it's 30. But all of it, you know, you're never going to come out with a flavored whiskey for $90, right?
No.
Hopefully not.
It's going to be in that space between whatever, $18 and 32, maybe, I don't know, something like this, right? Which isn't, honestly, it's not the space we want to be in anyway, you know. So even if it's not like the accountant in Clonakilty is telling us we need to get into that flavored whiskey thing because we're going to make a huge amount of money, we're not. But if you're mass producing whiskey, you can do it, right?
Right.
And to be honest, you have to play in that space if you're big. So if you're one of the big players, there's a certain amount. Jameson, as a Jameson, you're not going to keep growing that 10% every year, right? So that's why Jameson brought out the Castmates. That's why they're pushing the Spots. Obviously, they're pushing Redbreast, and now they're coming out with this because they have to, you know, they can't keep growing a small amount of SKUs, right? So they have, but if it's 30%, they have to be in that space. I mean, I think they get their asses kicked, sorry for my French, if they weren't in that space. So we ask them, why aren't you in that space? So, you know, they're in. I think that they brought out the coffee. What are the Jameson coffee? What are they called?
Yeah, but that's not even whiskey.
Cold brew. Yeah, I know that, but this isn't either because it's less than 40%. So it cannot be, it's obviously not categorized. Well, in Ireland or in the European Union, it can't be categorized as whiskey.
Right.
I'm not sure.
It'll be on the shelf. It'll be on the shelf with the other Jameson though when it comes.
Right next to it. Right next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. You know, if that gets people across the threshold, that's fine.
Well, there you go. Some people say that 12 is not the best Irish whiskey that's ever been produced. Some people say that, but it gets people into the Irish whiskey category, right?
Yeah.
It gets a demographic.
I'm sorry, you broke up for a second. Did you say proper 12? Did you say that?
I did. I said that. I did say that. I said some people say that proper 12 isn't the best Irish whiskey they've ever tasted, but it does get people into the category.
Yeah, but there's a question of, okay, it gets people into the category, but if you get people into the category with a unpleasant first impression, I don't know if that really helps.
Yeah, but
there's the rub, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people love it.
Okay.
And again, I've been at tasting, people say, oh, I don't like it. I only like proper 12. I struggle to come up with a response to that when somebody says to me, I only like proper 12.
So if that's the case, then I guess that's a good thing, right? Because their taste may mature and evolve. Just follow me here. Their taste may mature and evolve, and they may get past that brand recognition and go like, oh yeah, Connor and all that. And they may go, okay, well, I'm realizing I don't actually like this, but maybe I'll try another Irish thing.
Exactly.
That's the point. That offsets the damage done.
Yeah. That may change though because of the change in ownership with that brand, right? And we don't know if it's gonna help. They lose that marketing angle. They may lose their popularity a little. We'll see.
Yeah, look, I have no idea. I've
Yeah.
never tasted proper 12, so I'm not going to
Oh,
say
you
if I like it,
haven't?
don't like it, it's good or bad. I've never tasted, so. But again,
There's a vote for a black pudding flavored. Yeah, so there you go.
Clonakilty black pudding.
Yeah,
That was-
so
There's your
I
breakfast.
say you just have to have an experimental room in the back for when we come over for tours and we can get crazy.
Well, does anybody know? Hang on now, let me just, I'm going to search for something here now. Bear with me for 1 second because there's a really interesting. Sorry, now I'm just going to my Google. Go to images. Click on images. Okay.
Is it going to be a full Irish whiskey
Yes, but
that we're about to break out?
does anybody know who this guy is?
Guy on the left or the right?
The guy on the left. The guy on the left is a guy by the name of Tojo the monkey, right? And the guy on the right is the military attaché from the US Embassy in Dublin, who came down to Clonakilty when this statue of Tojo was unveiled, right? And this is a great story. In World War II, there was a British bomber flying from Africa to the UK, got completely lost. On board the British bomber, there was like 10, sorry, it was a US bomber, I beg your pardon, a US bomber flying to the UK. There was 10 guys and a monkey, Tojo. And they crash landed at Clonakilty. They had no idea, they got lost, and no idea where they
That old
were.
story.
Sorry?
That old story.
You know the story.
No, go ahead, sorry.
They crash landed, no idea where they were, thought they might be in Norway. They were ready to shoot their way out when they saw the locals coming up. And they realized they were in Ireland. We were neutral, but we had this sort of neutrality where if you were British or American, you crash landed in Ireland, you were sent back to the UK. If you were German, you were put in jail. So we were sort of neutral, but not really neutral. So the guys went for 3 days. They stayed in a hotel in Clonakilty. They got completely drunk for 3 days. And poor old Tojo, we see here, died in Clonakilty. And there's various theories why he died. Maybe it was the cold weather, because he was picked up in Brazil. So they'd gone from America to Brazil to Africa to England. Or, maybe he was given too much rum because he liked drinking rum. So anyways, Tojo was laid out for like a day. So they had the Irish wake where everybody went and paid their respects to Tojo, laying out in the bed in the hotel, in O'Donovan's Hotel, which is still there in the middle of Clonakilty. So he was a star, and he was buried with full military honors, as you would be if you were a soldier. And that's why the guy from the American military attaché came down when they did the unveiling of the statue. So Clonakilty, we're going to bring out a Tojo whiskey, obviously, and I think it should be a rum finished whiskey, obviously, because Tojo was a rum drinker. But I think it's a great story, and it's a true story, which actually makes it even better. So about Clonakilty, and if you go to Clonakilty, you can stay in the hotel room that Tojo was laid out in 1944. The hotel is still there. I think they've changed the sheets since then, once or twice.
I would just go ahead and say that we are genuinely now pretending we are in an Irish pub telling stories, because that
Exactly.
sounds exactly like a perfectly good story. True.
Exactly.
I have
Now-
a request for another story. Is there a story behind the Armagnac version?
No, the only story behind the Armagnac is
I was down in Florida. I was in a liquor store, and the dude said, "Well, you know, can you do a barrel program with an Armagnac finish?" And we said, "Yeah, no problem." So we got an Armagnac cask up. So no romance, purely commerce. No romance. Sorry about that.
What, so I guess of the three, do people have a favorite of the three?
Yep.
See,
Three. Three.
I'm gonna say the double oak by a nose.
I'm gonna mess things up and say I like the grain. I like the palate, the taste of the grain right away. But my winner on the nose is the for the nose is the pork cask. Yeah, I like the nose a lot. I'm not gonna say a lot more than the flavor. It's a little sweeter than I typically care for, but I understand how that would appeal to a lot. But the nose was wonderful.
Yeah.
Nose was wonderful.
I'm going to second the grain, and I was surprised by that, but it was my favorite of the three.
Cian,
Anyone
I saw the
else,
Irish. I saw the Irish name there, Cian. Yeah, I was wondering. Could have thought.
Tá mé go maith agus tú féin?
Good Margaret. I forgot all my Irish. Jesus.
You've as much as me then.
Well, my excuse is I lived 20 years in Poland, so I can speak Polish. If anybody can speak Polish, I can speak it back to them. So yeah, I've lost it. I lost my French as well. All the things that my teachers bait into me, I've lost it all.
Glad I'm not the only one.
No, where are you from?
Dublin.
Dublin, right? I'm from Ennis. I'm not from Clonakilty, by the way. I'm from Clonakilty.
I didn't think there was an accent from down there now.
No.
what, I'm curious, why Florida? Is there any particular reason why you settled there when you came over?
I gave my wife the option where we wanted to live on the basis that I was going to be traveling.
Okay.
She likes the weather. She's a warm weather person.
I'm curious that you said you could function out of your garage 365 in Florida. It seems like it might be a little humid and hot there in about August.
Yeah, the sun comes in around like 3 o'clock, so it gets a little bit hot around 3. But otherwise, it's fine. So I move upstairs to the air conditioning around 3. But you get like iguanas and all sorts. I open up the garage door in the morning, so I have like fresh air coming through, and the sun is the other side of the building, so I don't. It's all a shade. It's really nice. It's really nice.
That sounds good.
I lived, as I said, in 20 years in Poland, so I had 6 months of cold, 6 months of warm, and I don't miss the cold, honestly. And when I walk my dog in the mornings, I don't have to check what the weather is. I just stick on a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and take him for a walk, and don't have to figure out what I have to wear.
This has been great. I really appreciate. I know. I hope I speak for all. We really appreciate your time and going through this with us and introducing this to us. I would personally say pay attention to the flyover country, those of us in Missouri.
Honestly, I need to be able to justify paying somebody money to be in Missouri, so therefore I have to be able to say, I look at the amount of cases sold in Missouri of Irish whiskey. I figure out how much of that we can take, and is that enough to justify having somebody there?
I'm doing my best, man. I
Mike,
can only do so much.
Hey, Mike, I'm trying to hold down the other side of the state. So
Oh, that's right. You're over there in Kansas City, aren't you?
yep.
Kansas City, that's
right.
it.
We're supposed to meet in the middle at some point.
We'll have to make a road trip up to Iowa, it looks like.
Yeah, sounds like.
Well, it's funny, like they ordered like 6 cases in Iowa. It's not going to set the world on fire, but I asked the lady who ordered it.
All it takes to become a distributed state. I think we can work this out.
But it's because it's a control state, so I don't have to deal with a distributor or a liquor store or anything. But I asked a lady from the iOS, control board or whatever. I said, "Who ordered it?" She said, "I have no idea." But can you put the little sticker, the iOS 5-cent sticker on it and send it over? I said, "Yeah, no, we can do that. Yeah, no problem." So I have no idea who ordered it, and I was thinking of actually just going out on Facebook and asking the question, does anybody know, from Iowa where it is? Because I'd love to know, just out of my own interest, who ordered it. Like 2 cases of each of the 3 whiskeys, so like 6 cases or whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it must be a liquor store, but I don't know. Because normally people reach out to us first and say, can you ship to a particular state? And we say yes or no. But yeah, somebody just decided to order it themselves. So there you go.
Question I wanted to ask, I don't know if there's an interesting story behind it, but just the logo, the minke whale, and just I know that my understanding is that they're common off the, in the ocean there off the coast, but is there any particular story behind that, why you chose that as the kind of the logo? And
the logo was there before we bought the building, first of all.
Okay.
And when we were looking at sort of, what would represent the brand, also because, when we bought the fields and stuff, and you can stand at the fields, you can do whale watching from the fields as well, right? So it was a natural thing. And I think, it's about nature as well. The minke whale is there August, September. It goes to, it goes from the Arctic all the way down to Japan. They kill the whales in Japan, and whatever. They kill them in the Faroes. Crazy stuff. Anybody watched that Netflix movie recently about it?
The thing about seafood?
Yeah.
Don't watch it.
Okay.
Do
Do they have whale watching tours like off the coast by the distillery?
Yeah, well, they have boats that go out, basically. Yeah. Is Brian still here? I saw him about the Polish vodka, Żubrówka. Anyways, yeah. So there's boats that go out to whale watching, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, we lost a couple of people.
I think Brian just jumped off.
Yeah. I guess we got to be mindful of people.
But
keep going.
Yeah, so people should just be aware too that you have to go to a different section of the liquor stores. But for people who like the gin, the minke gin is available where the whiskey is. So you just have to. So you'll see it. It's kind of a bluish bottle. Here you go.
That's it, and it's made from whey alcohol. So from the milk of the cows from the farm goes to the processing plant, and you can. In 1978, the first time alcohol was made from milk in Ireland, in Carbery, right in Cork, in County Cork. So there's a mouthfeel that's so completely different. There's a roundness to it. Alan, have you tried it?
I have. Yeah. I tried it in Ireland actually, but
oh, I see some Glendalough there, Mike. What are you doing?
That's my gin cabinet. I have to keep it separate from my whiskey so it doesn't mingle. But yeah, there's some Dingle and some Glendalough. I didn't know that you. I don't know if you know Geraldine Kavanaugh from Glendalough, but I don't want to turn this into a gin / Glendalough conversation. But when you walk around the lakes in Glendalough for 3 hours with Geraldine talking to you about gin, and she has no idea about whiskey, you start to like gin. So I'm looking forward to trying yours.
Well,
and I know
I would think
I'm both sipping it now.
I would think in Florida you'd take a liking to gin. I think we found when we were on our family trip a couple of years ago when Ireland was going through the drought and the heat wave, Guinness, as much as we like it, just wasn't cutting it when it was 90 degrees in Ireland. So we became try a different gin every day kind of thing.
Yeah. Like,
So got to sample a lot of the new gins coming from the craft distillery. So it was great.
Yeah.
no, that's exciting to me that you're doing, Jen. I'm really looking forward to trying.
No,
I'm
it's
gonna
nice.
get
It's
my order.
we designed it as a sipping gin rather than, for G&T or whatever.
Okay.
And now the big thing actually in the US is for infusions. So we have there's a new gin bar opening down in Miami, and they're using us for all of their infusions. They're doing like seaweed infusions, they're doing lemongrass, they're doing all this crazy sort of infusions.
Great.
And it's and the thing is, the way alcohol is different from neutral grain spirit alcohol, which is obviously most what gins are made from. So it holds up. That's the point with even infusions, So definitely recommend it.
Give it a shot.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions or for Pork or things they want to ask about? I think if anybody's can't find one of the ones we had tonight on the shelf, reach out to me or to Pork certainly. And if you can't get it in your state, we can figure out. There's plenty of ways to get it online delivered these days. Unless you live, there's ways around everything. Hopefully, we find which we're working on it. But
exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is great. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Well,
yeah,
I
we
enjoyed
hope.
it. I had a great time.
We hope. I'm looking forward to visiting the distillery soon. Well, last time we were there we were leaving right. I think you were opening a month later, and then the plan was the next.
Late, Alan. I didn't know you were there that late.
Well, the plan was to go the next year, and then obviously things, everything. So now it's been a couple of years. So, but looking forward to it because it looks beautiful.
No, looking forward to have you all over when world gets
You're in
back.
a great spot in town, that's for sure. For those that haven't seen it, that building is literally I don't know literally, but at least pretty much in the
Can't miss it.
center of town. It's right in the center of town at a major intersection. Yeah, right. Alan says you cannot miss it, and it's just a beautiful presentation that they've done. I'm glad to see that it's come to fruition as Michael had envisioned.
Yeah. So I got a question about the slow gin being available in the US.
It's every tasting I do, somebody asks that question.
There you go. Good job.
And the answer is no.
Find slow gin for those of us not Jenny.
Slows are stuff that are little berries, sort of bitter berries that grow on hedgerows in Ireland, all over Ireland. And I'm not sure if it's called a slow in America or you have a different word for it.
The term I'm familiar with.
Yeah, we call it that here, but I don't think a lot of people are familiar with it, to be honest with you.
The problem is it takes ages, so we don't have the space for it. So you can you can make 1,000 liters of it in one of those containers, but it takes months, 4 or 5 months in the container, and we just don't have the space to do it. So we did it as a sort of a distillery exclusive, and I don't even know if it's for sale. Maybe it's in a couple of places around, but there's bar people, who are into their mixologists and stuff have been asking me to bring it over and stuff, and we don't. It's too niche. I haven't even tasted it yet, by the way. Nobody has actually sent over a sample, but everybody loves it, or they say they love it. Because I haven't been traveling back to Ireland, I haven't had any taste of it. But I think it got some award, I think this year as World Gin Awards or some best slow gin or something. I don't know what it is, but it's really niche. And sadly, no, we won't be bringing it over.
I have not heard anybody talk about slow gin since I was a teenager.
About 4 years ago, Kathy. Come on. Oh no, that was Diane. Sorry. Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. Come on.
I'm
question,
telling you, I can't even believe you're talking about sloe gin.
I
We
know.
used to make a sloe gin fizz.
Fizz, yeah, Alan.
Yeah,
it's your-
that was
that's
like
what-
the first illegal drink anybody had in Massachusetts.
there you go.
Alan, that was the drink I drank at your parents' wedding.
Oh.
Wow.
So,
Right,
right.
yeah.
Alan,
No,
you-
that's because the ushers kept buying the bridesmaids slow gin fizzes.
Yeah, that was the drink. I didn't even know
we
you
have,
could still
a
buy slow
late-
gin.
Oh,
we have a late edition, Griffin.
I don't think I've had one
Yeah, no,
since.
I'm on it.
All right, man.
It's niche. It's definitely niche.
A question about the Pelican
Yeah. I'm not sure if I
release
have
you
it
did in
here.
Oregon.
Yeah, there's a brewery called Pelican, and we did a God, what was it? We did a collaboration with them, a barley wine finish beer. So they sent the casks over. We're doing a stout cask with them at the moment. They sent barrels over like 2 weeks ago as well. So we're doing another collaboration with them, which hopefully we'll be back in. Depending on how long it takes, stout it takes longer for the you know the actual cask to work its magic with stout.
How
But
long?
it should be
How long?
anywhere between 4 and 9 months. So IPAs can be done, you know, between 3 weeks and 6 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay. I had no idea.
But IPA is very hoppy and very the citra hops, you know, so you can't leave it in too long. But yeah, so we've moved to more of the stouts and the darker ones. But yeah, so again, it depends on the cask. And Paul is there and he's taking these samples every Monday and says it's not ready, it's not ready, it's not ready, and that's it, you know. So we won't bring it out until it's ready. So sometimes you miss your window for when you should sell it. But you know,
That can get overdone.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. We better be cool with people's time. Alan?
Oh yes, sorry, we've got people saying goodbye and all the rest of it. So yeah. But it's been great.
well,
It's been great.
So thank you very much, everyone who came out, and special thanks to Pork for his time, and hope everyone enjoyed themselves, and certainly check back. We're kind of in further conversations. We talked a lot about some of the releases and stuff they're doing, so we're looking at the potential to do a release, special Irish Whiskey Society America release, potentially in the near future. So if anyone has any suggestions on stuff they'd like to see, please feel free to reach out. And because as Mark was saying, they're they'll experiment with stuff and try different stuff. So a lot of options out there on stuff we can do going forward.
Definitely.
But all right, well, great. So thank you very much, and
you.
we'll see you all very soon, hopefully in
Thanks
person.